that are going to watch this and going to watch the replay, I wanted to jump on here and be able to answer questions. This is the start of a series that I'm going to do with answering people's questions and talking about how to take an idea that you have as a side gig idea and elevate that to being something six figures. So that's kind of the thought process behind it. What I want you to do is you all can send in questions beforehand. I got a few questions I'm going to answer right now, but hopefully this will be able to help you all in wanting to take that side gig idea or that side hustle or that one idea that you might have and you want to elevate it and take it to something that's going to be six figures. So we're going to jump right in. If you have any questions you want to send them in, feel free to do that. A few people wasn't able to make the live right now, so they sent in their questions ahead of time. We're going to sit up here and we're going to answer these questions for them as best as possible and then hopefully bring value to everybody else. Now, a lot of the questions are with me being an entertainer, being a comedian and a magician. A lot of entertainers that wanted to be full-time and they're not full-time, they're asking questions about how do they get to be full-time. So that's what some of it's going to do, but I'm going to kind of spin the question a little bit where it can apply to anybody, whether it be if you want to, you are cutting hair or, you're starting a landscape company or you're starting a handyman service or something like that, or maybe a mobile mechanic, something like that that you are starting to do and you're doing it, out of your garage, doing it out of your basement, doing it out of a spare bedroom, and then you want to elevate it and take it way past that. So, we're going to be able to do that for you with as far as coaching, answer questions and things like that. Okay? So, one of the first questions that people that is asked is, I have a fear of starting. I have an idea that I want to do, but I'm not 100% sure how to do it. I'm not 100% sure if it's even going to work. So to answer that very simply, fear is very valid. Fear is real. Fear is 100% real. The thing is, you can't be afraid to execute on an idea. There's a lot of great ideas that people just executed before you did, and they did it because they wasn't afraid. So what I would encourage you to do is to sit down and make a list of what you're afraid of and write it down. I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of this. And it's funny what will happen is when you actually start writing out a lot of things that you're afraid of, a lot of the fear will go away. But you identify what the fear is by writing it down. So I would tell you start with what you are afraid of. Some people are just as afraid of success as they are failure. It's one thing to try something and then you say, okay, well, it didn't work. And then you feel kind of like a bum. It's something else to have a fear of like, well, whoa, what if this works and my life changes, or it makes me I got to move, or it impacts my family this type of way, or it requires me to do a certain level of work. It's going to require me to be away or something like that. So, you have to decide what that fear is. And I would tell you take out a piece of paper, write out exactly what you're afraid of. And I think a lot of your fear will go away. Okay. Another question is, what do you charge, or how do you determine what to charge? And this is a common question with entertainers, like, am I charging enough? Do I charge this? Do I charge that? And, the basis of everything that I talk about when I have somebody come on as far as getting any kind of coaching is you got to put your personal financials down and figure out what your financials are. And then that will actually, believe it or not, slowly tell you what you need to charge. So, whatever those financials are, you need to know. I always had three categories. I had a category of existing, what I used to call bacteria, okay, which was just living, existing. And then you have another category being comfortable, and then you have another category being, some people would call wealthy, okay. So you need to put on paper and physically write out what that is. And then you charge based on how much you want to work. So let's say you only want to do 4 contracts a month. Well, if your existing living expenses is $3,000, so you take the $3,000 divided by 4, and that's going to leave you a little more than 300. Is that right? Am I doing that math right? Or 800? 3,000 divide that by 4. That's $750. So that means per contract you need to be charging $750. Whether you're on a stage, you're rocking a stage, whether you're doing an appearance somewhere, or, whatever the case is. You have to figure out how many times you want to work in a given month. Take the number and then divide it by that many times. And then you need to mark it accordingly. Most people don't know what to charge because they don't know really what their expenses are. They don't ever really do the math and put the math down and actually look and see what really is the math to do it, which is, to me, scary. I used to do that on a daily. When I was working a job and I wasn't happy about the fact I worked a job, I would have a legal pad and I would write out every day and look at how much it cost. How much was this? How much was this? How much was this? How much was this? How much was it going to cost me to live? And then I focused on what I was needing to charge in order for me to make that as an entertainer. And then over the years, I've been able to refine it. So I hope that has helps. But you need to put on a piece of paper and figure out how much your expenses are, and you need to figure out your levels. Me, I had a level of which was just basically covering my baseline expenses, and then I had another level that was my expenses plus kind of living, like a little bit of mad money if I wanted to go to the movies, something like that. And then I had the third level for me at that time, which was, what would it take for me to really be comfortable? That included me, golf. That included, my gym membership. That included not really looking at a whole lot of big prices when it comes to me going to the grocery store. I used to hate that. It used to aggravate the snot out of me. I used to hate that. So you need to figure out what those different levels are. And I literally would take a piece of paper or a legal pad like this, and I would literally have three columns. So 1, 2, and there you have 1, 2, 3 columns, and then I would literally write out what those expenses were. Then I would write out what these expenses would be. And when I was in this column, I had a car payment. I don't have a car payment now, but I would write out what those expenses would be. Then I would write out what would it be if I had, at that time I was still thinking about having a car that was going to have a car payment. I was thinking like, what would a $600 car payment cost me and all that. So then you write that out like that. And when you do that, you'll be able to actually see, okay, well, I want to do so many contracts a month. Take that number, divide it by that many contracts, and then the key is marketing accordingly. Most people don't want to market accordingly. So it's a little bit more than just throwing out a Facebook post and hoping that's enough. It's usually not enough. Okay? All right, cool. Another question was, I have a side hustle idea, but I work full time and then I have kids that I have to deal with after work. How do I find the time to do the side idea and deal with kids and living a life? So this is a pretty common question, and the basic answer of what you need to do, I hate to say this to you, but you got to get up earlier in the morning. Any side idea, you're going to have to take 2 hours, minimum 1 hour a day, to focus just on that side idea. I found the make or break point tends to be 2 hours. So you're going to have to take 2 hours a day. And if you want to do your first hour before you go to your day job and then do another hour after you put your kids to sleep, that's cool. But you're going to have to do 2 hours a day of dedicated focus on whatever it is you're working on when it comes to taking your side idea and elevating it to being something full-time. So, and most places, the easiest place to do that, is to get up earlier. You have to get up earlier. So, I know, it's not fun. And, the bed feels good, and it's warm, and it's soft, and it's cool, and you don't want to get up. I get it. A lot of people don't want to get up, but that's what you have to do if you want to progress to where your side idea is making you enough money that you don't have to work a job. So I say 2 hours a day is usually the make or break point that I think, even if you progress slow and say for the first 1 or 2 months, you're only doing 1 hour a day. But what will happen is that your experience in operating a business will get better as you progress up from doing just 1 hour a day. Because at the end of 3 weeks, there's going to be a lot of things you're going to know about yourself. There's going to be a lot of things you're going to know about your business and how to deal with people and how to deal with people that don't get back to you, how to send out a quote, how to do this, how to do that. All of that's going to be very, very different. So, I would strongly encourage you to do that. Is to take 2 hours a day and then let that education of you learning how to do that build on itself. And where that next month, the second month or the third month, when you're taking 2 hours a day, that time of 2 hours is going to be a hell of a lot more productive, because there's a lot of stuff that you learn from doing it, just reps, just like going to the gym. And I did shoulders today, just doing side laterals, or doing overhead press. You just got to get the reps in. And part of running a business, that's part of it. A lot of people just they want to have a website, they want to have a business card, throw out a Facebook post, and they hope that $1 million in business is going to come to them. That's just not how it works. It just doesn't jive like that. So, put in the reps, 2 hours a day, and start writing down some of the common questions you have, and you'll believe it or not, you'll start answering yourself. So, okay. Another question was, this is directly dealing with a person that's a magician. Magician is asking about restaurant work. Is restaurant work worth it? And my question to you is that if you're thinking about working in a restaurant, my question to you is why? I've learned over the years, and I used to chase that. People that really know my background know I was the house magician at a comedy club for 7 years, every weekend for 7 years. And then the last few years, I was slowly phasing that out, where I wasn't able to do that because I was booking shows. So, I've got parameters that I would suggest of how you need to structure a restaurant deal if you're going to do a restaurant. But the question is, why do you want to do a restaurant? Is it just because you want to be able to point and say, look, I'm working? Or is it really something that you're trying to build on? And because a lot of things, if you really look at the logistics of working a restaurant, it's not going to really build anything. It's not going to really build to what you want, as far as if you're thinking about doing bookings. Some people say that it does, but I've got conversations and arguments with that. That's not the case, in my opinion. So, that's what you need to do when it comes to restaurants. Okay. Another question is, what do I do when I send out a bid and I'm waiting to hear back and I haven't heard back yet? And the best thing I can tell you is very similar to being like you're out in the dating market, brother. Is that you ain't busy enough. If you're waiting on that one person to call you back, you need to get more proactive about being busy for yourself, where you're so busy you don't have time to worry about who gets back to you and who doesn't. If they don't get back to you, then if I told you, me telling you that between me and my assistant, we probably do 12 or 14 quotes a day, most of those people don't get back to us. As soon as they see the price, most of those people don't get back to us. So, and my thing is to tell you, go quote 5 more people. It's like you ask a chick out, chick ain't feeling you, and you hung up about that chick. Well, go ask 4 more. Or would you be worried if you had 4 chicks that was trying to go out with you Saturday? Would you worry about the one that didn't call you back Thursday? I don't think so. So business kind of the same way. I think you can make yourself productive, and just you have to be proactive about going after new work. And that's any business, whether it's you're a magician, you're a comedian, anything like that. You got to be proactive that you're going to be going after it, focus on it, work on it hard. So, get busier with more quotes. You do that, you'll be good. Does anybody have any questions? I'm live. I see we got some viewers here. You got questions about taking your side gig and making it 6 figures? If so, put it in the chat so I can so I can answer your questions. Any questions? Questions before I move on? Anybody else? Anybody else? Going once. Going twice. Okay. All right. So, another question is, how do you handle marketing? This is kind of broad. How do you handle marketing? Please cover your anchor show concept again. Okay. Cover my anchor show concept. So, anchor show concept is one particular contract is going to pay those categories of what I mentioned. I'm going to go ahead and write this out so you all can have that. But so there's three. I'm going to write this out for you. There's three categories, in my opinion, and I'm really taking this from Rich Dad Poor Dad. There's three categories. Okay. There is live, cool, comfortable. Okay. My handwriting is very awful, by the way, so you know. So you have three categories. You have living, you have cool, and then you have comfortable. Okay. So living. This is the bare basics of what you need to survive. Your house, your car, cell phone, lights, water. That's literally what it was. And I'll tell you exactly what my number used to be when I first moved. My number used to be $1,000 a month. Okay? That's what it took for me just to live and exist. The next level up, I even remember this. My next level was cool, and that was $1,500, roughly. And that was, $1,500 was groceries, gas, a few bucks if I want to get a 20 ounce or something like that. That was cool. Comfortable, for me, when I was doing this, was right around $2,200, okay, a month. That was everything I needed to pay all my bills, pay for me to play golf, me to go to the movies, things like that, okay? Me being able to somewhat live and then be able to put money away in an emergency fund. What you have to do is you have to figure out what are your levels. I can't do that. I don't know what your levels are. I don't know if you have kids, if you have childcare. You have to figure out what your levels are. And I would do this constantly. So an anchor show is this. One contract will equal one of these. So I would get focused. I got focused every month on making sure that I had one anchor show per month. One anchor show a month. And when I was substitute teaching, that meant that I was trying to close a $1,000 show per month. If I did that, I knew the base core of my bills was covered. So then that would mean anything that I would make as a teacher would put me in this category of being cool. If I was good and I booked 2 anchor shows at $1,000 a piece, then that catapulted me to comfortable. And what I did over the course of time, I figured out an ebb and flow of how to do this continually on a regular basis. But you're only able to do that if you know what your numbers are. You have to know what it is for you to live, what it is for you to be cool, and what it is for you to be comfortable. I can't determine that. You have to determine that. So for me, at the time, it was $1,000 a month. That's what it cost. And I know somebody might try to debate that, but listen, I've been very transparent about my numbers. I will always be transparent about my numbers. So me telling you exactly what my numbers were, even to a certain degree what my numbers are now today, I don't have a problem doing that. So, I'm not lying to you. But when I first moved from West Virginia, I lived in West Virginia. When I moved out of West Virginia, okay, it was costing me $1,000 a month. That covered my rent, At the time, I had a car payment that covered my car insurance, that covered my cell phone. That's all it covered. Okay? And where I was renting, my rent included my utilities at the time. So that's how I was able to do it on $1,000 a month. I don't know what your basic number is, but what it is an anchor show is going to basically cover one of these three categories. Okay? So your anchor show anchors your month. That one show or that one contract, if you are not in entertainment, if you're something else, that one contract will cover that, all of that for the next month. Okay? Nick, I don't know if you're still on, but I hope that answers your question. So, you want to figure out what those numbers are. Okay? And things get really interesting when all of this shifts down. Okay? So, where this used to be comfortable, this can shift down to being cool, and then it could really shift down to being living. Okay? Which means these go up. Right? So, now different anchor shows are different things, but, so I focus on now every quote that I do, believe it or not, every quote that I do now is an anchor. So I don't quote anything that one show is an anchor for me. So every quote that I do, it's automatic. Boom. It's whatever. So you have to figure out what that is. But when you figure out whatever your anchor contract, and that comes from the premise of the mall. So even some of the bigger annual events, they have what they call an anchor sponsor. And the anchor sponsor, it looks like it's like one of the pillar sponsors, which it is, right? But behind the scenes of that, when that word was created, anchor, it was created from the mall that they had anchor stores. The logistics behind that is that the anchor store, so, back in the day it was Sears, JCPenney, Macy's, some of y'all remember Montgomery Ward, okay? Those anchor stores, that particular vendor, let's say it was JCPenney. JCPenney's rent inside of the mall basically covered the entire mortgage for the mall. That's why malls used to make so much money. So if they had 3 anchor stores, that meant, let's say they had a JCPenney's, a Sears, and say a Macy's, right? Well, each one of those stores, and let's just say if you were the property owner and you owned the mall, that mall with the structure and the land was maybe costing you $15,000 a month for you to be the owner of the mall. Well, Macy's is paying $15,000 a month rent just by themselves. That's where the term anchor came from. So anchor would anchor that mall because that anchor store would cover the rent for the mall. And then they did it again. So that was Macy's. And then Sears was also paying $15,000. Well, now Sears is another anchor. So if Macy's falls out or Macy's moves or Macy's closes or they decide to go to a different mall, they still had the mall anchored because they would have 3 or 4 anchor stores. That's why it's still to this day. Now, most things are strip malls, but if you still go and there's still some malls there, they're still called an anchor. That's an anchor store because that one store is paying their rent, is paying the mortgage for just about all of the mall. So that's where I borrowed that concept of anchor show, is that one show, making enough on that one show is going to pay my bills for the entire next month. Okay? Hope that answered your question. Nick Roberts. If there's any of y'all on the live and y'all have questions about, taking your side gig or your side idea and taking it to 6 figures, if you're a magician or you're a comedian, you got a question about elevating and bringing up your magic business, you want to do that, I'm looking at the comments now, so, type your question in the comment, and I'll try to get it answered. I hope I answered your question, Nick. If I don't, man, hit me with a follow-up, hit me with a direct message, and I'll get into it a little bit more, but I want to make sure I get all of your questions answered. This is another question I get. Talk about the concept of drive zone and fly zone. So I'm going to show you something here. Again, my handwriting isn't great. The drive zone and fly zone is the square area that you're going to determine where you're going to go. If you all have children and you don't really want to fly, or you don't want to service or do business out of state, you don't have to. That's entirely up to you. You say, you know what, I know there are some vendors I talk to with different types of industries. They say we don't go more than 40 miles outside of where we live. Okay. I mean, I'm not handy. I'm not handy at all. I don't do handyman stuff. I'm not fix it. I'm not into that. That's just not my thing. And I'm telling you that because very frequently I will look for a handyman to do something that I need to have done around my house, around the crib, and I ain't trying to do it. And I've talked to several handymen that live like 40 minutes away, and they say, "Where are you at?" And I tell them where I'm at, and they say, "Oh, no, we don't go that far." I'm like, so okay, and I got to look for somebody else. So you all have to decide what your drive zone is, and your drive zone is entirely up to you. My drive zone used to be where could I go out on one tank of gas. That usually put me within a 3-hour radius. So you have to determine what your drive zone is, and your drive zone will determine how much you're going to market. So if your drive zone is a 2-hour radius, cool. If it's a 1-hour radius, cool. If it's a 4-hour radius, cool. The bigger your radius, the more people you can market to. So, you have to determine what your drive zone is. The next thing is you got to determine what your fly zone is. And your fly zone, for me, or what I call your fly zone or your hot zone, the fly zone and the hot zone usually incorporates where can I fly direct without making a connection. And I market heavy in those cities because I can fly there really cheap. You have to take, and I'm telling you how long, if you decide that you're going to go down this path, it's going to take you a day, at least a day, to find out the closest. If you live in a major city and you got a major airport, fantastic. If you don't, you have to figure out the closest airport to you. Then after that, you have to figure out where can I fly out of that airport direct, and then you need to market in those corresponding cities. So I'm fortunate, but it was a little bit strategic too when I decided to move. I decided to move to a major city that had a major airport that had a lot of direct routes, and I purposely did that on purpose. That was a calculated decision. So, a lot of major cities I can fly to direct without having to make a connection. Now what's happened is I've kind of gotten a little bougie, and I only fly particular certain airlines. So now my qualifier is where can I fly on this airline, and I can fly directly into that city without me having to make a connection. That's just a personal thing. But I've refined this over the course of time. So you may not want to go that hard. You don't have to go that hard. Me, I go that hard. So, I know I can fly to Atlanta, Dallas, Austin, Chicago, New York, Philly, Phoenix, Vegas, Charlotte, and Detroit. That's just off the top of my head. I know I can fly there direct without making a connection. You have to determine where you want that to be, and then you have to market accordingly, because then what happens is you're marketing, what I call marketing mushrooms. So if you start marketing in, say, Dallas, or you start marketing in Phoenix, or you start marketing whatever, but then again you may come back and say, hey, look, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to be on the road. I had a conversation with an entertainer just last week. We were talking about the whole drive zone, fly zone concept, and he was asking me, he goes, is it not possible for me to make enough money just in the drive zone? I said, if your drive zone is big enough, I said, but by the time you expand your drive zone, you might as well fly. In a lot of cases. If you give yourself a 5-hour drive radius, it's going to take you 5 hours to go out, 5 hours to come back. If you're 30 minutes away from the airport, how many places can you fly to on a 1-hour flight? It gives you a whole lot more, and your time away from home is going to be about the same by the time you get off the plane, get in your rental car, go do the gig or the contract, come back, get back, and all that. So, you have to determine what your drive zone is, determine what your fly zone is. If you don't want to leave more than 100 miles, you don't have to. You just have to market accordingly. So that's the kind of the give and take of that. You have to market accordingly. Okay? Any other questions? Hit them in the chat if you got a question, so I can. It was cool, man. I like that, answering questions like that. That was cool. Answering questions out. I mean, I know what I can talk about, but I don't know what you all want me to talk about or what I can do to help you. So, If you got a question, go ahead and hit it in the comments. We've got a few viewers there. Some of y'all just probably being nosy, like, what's he talking about? So, but if you got a question, and again, this is to help people that are part-time, or you have a side hustle idea and you want to take it full-time. So if you got a question, hit it in the comment. It could be if you're a magician or a comedian, you want to hit me with an entertainment question or entertainment business question, hit it in the chat. I'll make it general where everybody can learn something from it. Anything else? Any other questions? Drop zone, fly zone. We talked about that. Anything else? Is that it? Going once? Going twice? Is that it? Okay. All right, guys. Well, been on here for 34 minutes. Hope you all got something out of this. We're going to put this up. Let this be out there for you to use, and it's going to be live on my YouTube. I'll probably split this up into 2 parts, maybe part 1, part 2, so you can take a look at it on my YouTube. But I'm going to get in the habit of doing. I don't want to commit to saying I'm going to do this every week, but it's going to be pretty close to that. So we're going to look at